Good morning,
Good afternoon.
good evening, wherever you are on our most glorious planet that has nature all over it, at least from place to place. Even in Brooklyn, you've got the big parks and whatnot. So It's up to you. Today is about being in nature. And welcome to being here. I'm Ariel.
I'm Shya, and I really like this quote that we have. It's by John Muir, who is a naturalist on the west coast of California many years ago, probably many years ago. In any event, it goes, I go into the forest to lose my mind and find my soul. And I find that inspirational because it's so easy to get lost in the man-made reality that we exist in. And we disregard nature, which could be all around us, for our cell phone or what's happening on television or in the news. And you step into nature, there's a possibility of discovering yourself rather than the conversation that you listen to that mostly complains about the way things are going.
I don't recall the title of the chapter, but in our last book, Being Here Too, we included lots of different chapters written by people in our community about their experience of themselves and their experience of transformation. And there's a very beautiful chapter written by Susan where she talks about hearing a crow in Hell's Kitchen, which is the Midtown West Side of Manhattan. And she was talking about how amazing it was to be walking down the street, actually listening rather than tuning out everything, including the nature that was happening in the middle of a busy city. And she attributed it to practicing the skill set of listening, which disengages you from your mind. So you don't actually have to lose it, but its grip on you loosens so that you can be here to hear what I have to say, what Jai has to say, what the guests have to say, perhaps what's happening around you in your environment.
Perhaps what you have to say when you're not busy thinking those same old thoughts and trying to get to where you think you ought to be rather than being where you ought to be, which is right where you are in the current moment of your life.
That happened to me today. We are pre-recording this episode. When it airs, we'll have just come back from vacation. And we will be going to British Columbia, so we'll be out in a lot of nature. But we're recording this on a Saturday, and we did a Living Made Easy seminar this morning, and there were a number of people there, and I was really listening to what people had to say. And all of a sudden, like a bubble from a bubble machine with you know how a bubble can be iridescent and have color. This bubble popped up, a solution to something I had been pondering that I totally even forgot I had as a question. It just like popped up and popped, and I was like, oh, there's the answer. There was something so wonderful about taking my attention off myself, about all of my life situation, all the circumstances, and suddenly the answer to something I forgot I even had a question about materialized. I like the word materialized. That was good.
I make good words sometimes.
You do. He asked me last night if I still love him after 40 or like him after 40 years. I was like, I not only like you, I love you.
That's pretty good.
Just saying.
That's a pretty good track record. I must be a kind person.
You are.
Because if I were not kind to myself, I would not be kind to you.
You know, when this
airs,
you
wouldn't like me.
I wouldn't like you. That's true. When this airs, it's going to air 2 days before our 38th wedding anniversary.
Whoa, excellent.
We're getting young. We were older then.
So much older than that now.
Shall we take
Younger
our first?
than that now. I love that song.
Younger. We are younger. Let's take our first guest, shall we?
Yes, please. Sandy, where are you?
Welcome to being here. And please tell everyone where you're zooming in from. Whoops, you came, you went, there you are.
Hi, this is Sandy from Fairfield, New Jersey. I'm in my studio. I came in earlier today. It's a happy place for me. Not that other places aren't, but I just I've had many studios over the years, and I just love it. And this topic of being in nature.
What studio do you have?
I do many things. I design 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional objects, small and large, from exhibits, displays, package design, websites, specialty sites, print, all sorts of things. I've been lucky in my career. I've been involved in so many industries, and it just keeps me going. I can't wait for tomorrow. I have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring, but like there'll be something else to actually create, and I love creating.
That's cool.
That's sweet.
What made me think when I heard about the topic that we're going to be talking about, back to nature. I've been fortunate when I was young, growing up. My grandfather took the family up to New York State, and we'd get a bungalow, and we'd spend the whole summer. And it was I love Brooklyn. That's where I'm from, but just being up there was no TV. There really wasn't any radio and stuff. And he was a fisherman, and he used to take me out in places that, like, I'm sure men and women have been there before, but I felt like I was the first person with him, walking in these spots. And it would be like, just so incredible. And he was an amazing person because he would make me listen. Not in the same way that we listen, but like just make me listen to nature when you go fishing, and there would be like sounds and the woods and stuff, and then once in a while it would get quiet, and he would say something else is with us. It doesn't mean it's big and it's going to hurt us, but like just be aware that there's something else with us. And he would make me use my eyes and watch for little bubbles in the water. And that's where that's where the fish is. And maybe that's not the fish that you want, but like, it was just an interesting way of growing up. And I've always liked that. And fast forward, when I sold my house in West Orange, I knew I couldn't really go too far into the country because I needed to be near New York City because a lot of my clients. So I found this place in Wayne that is, 5 minutes away from where I am, are stores and highways and Route 80 and Route 46 and 23 and all that stuff. But our street is along a river, and it's in nature. I come home some nights, I'd shut my door and I'll just daydream looking into the water and watching the animals, usually when it's getting closer to sunset. Really helps me quieting my mind. It's not as noisy. The mind gets noisy during the day. I'm doing, phone calls are coming, and people asking me questions, about a project, so forth. But the nature part always seemed to just quiet me down still. It probably quiets me down more these days than it has even in the past.
I enjoyed listening to you talk about your grandfather and going places and going, oh, there's something with us, not that you need to be afraid. And I suddenly flashed on something I probably haven't thought of in 30 or 40 years, or maybe even longer. My parents' home, my home where I grew up, was next to woods, and it's now a permanent green space. My parents ultimately sold to the state, and so that it can never be built on. So there are all these really big trees, and by the house was a pump house for the water source, but up the hill and quite a ways away was the actual spring. So as a kid, every once in a while I would go up and they would check the spring and I would go with them. And one time we were traveling through the woods, and I must have been really young. I don't even know if I was in school yet. And up standing by the spring was a buck. And I'd never seen a deer except for in Bambi that was male with a rack on it. And it was a magnificent, huge buck with a rack standing by the spring. And I remember my dad getting really still and standing there with him, watching this magnificence come out of nowhere. And now, of course, later he tried to keep them out of his yard, but at that moment it was really. Isn't it funny how those moments where you've been graced by something unexpected and wild, it imprints itself and replays, like that bear you saw across the road, and how often you drive by that space, Shya?
Yeah, actually, in the years that I've lived around here, two bears crossing a road in the wild, crossing the road. And both those places, whenever I go by them, I'm looking for a bear.
Not because it frightened him, but because it was such a magnificent moment. It's so imprinted. There's always the, will I see it again?
There was this time we were coming home from leading a seminar in New York City, and it was winter and it was snowing, and we come down the hill about a mile from our house, and there are these two huge buck, white-tailed deer bucks
fighting for dominance
in the middle of the road.
So they had their heads locked, and you could see they were making skids through the snow as they were fighting.
Pushing against
they
each
were
other.
Totally oblivious to us. And eventually Shya honked the horn because
I didn't want them
coming through the windshield.
Climbing on top of our then Volkswagen.
But there are definitely moments in time that have a special wildness that feeds us.
It creates an imprint in our mind, almost like a photograph. And we go back and recall it. My friend lives in Livingston, and there's a lot of property behind his house. And I guess it's a deer crossing because there's nobody really goes back there. And we were over the house, it was a number of years ago. It was early in the evening, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock, and these two male deers came out, and they started, banging heads a little bit, but then they stood up on their hind legs and started punching each other. And this went on for about, 12 minutes, maybe longer. And the sounds they were really throwing blows at each other. My friend has it on his camera on video from years ago. I have to ask him to pull it out. I'd love to share it. But I've never seen that before. And it's like I said, it's an imprint in my head. I could see it. You can't see it. We haven't figured out when.
I just saw it.
You created a
great
a word picture, and I saw it.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
When we do these episodes, Sandy, I work with the producers, and we're always putting pictures that I have taken or images that I have shot as the episode. I don't know what I picked for Peeing in Nature, but I showed you and our producer today and our next guest a couple of pictures that I took of wildlife by our pond. One was a juvenile hawk, and the other was a deer as she was drinking, and then she was looking at us. So I will look and see, and when you listen to this episode, if one of those two images show up as the episode image, this is something wild that I took within the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm going to remember the eyelashes of the deer because which was pretty pretty special. I mean, that's a great shot to get it that sharp where you could zoom in and see that, you know.
Well, thank you, Sandy, for
Picking the one
how-
we're going to use.
you know, and first of all, for picking the image we'll use, but also when I was at a loss, what was the next camera to get, you not only helped me in choosing a camera, but you found a video of an individual talking about the camera where, well, I was listening to him, I felt smart, as opposed to, Jesus, I have a lot to learn. I realized I have a lot to learn, but it was not a deficiency. It was more like you were describing earlier, an eagerness of possibility. And hopefully, when y'all tune into being here, you end up with an eagerness of possibility rather than thinking that you are somehow deficient or less. Because if you really listen, what you access in listening is your own genius.
Well, really listening involves letting go of the story of your life and how you're doing to get here to be with whoever is speaking that you're listening to. It's, see, there are three simple ideas to instantaneous transformation. And the first one is anything you resist persists. And so all those things that you say you don't want in your life, you keep them there in your resistance to having them. It's a shame, but it happens to be true that those things that you have disregarded or disliked or wanted to be different, you get stuck with. The second principle is life shows up exactly as it is in each moment. And the third principle is that if you see something, it completes itself if you don't judge it. In an instant, it completes itself. So seeing is enough to complete years of behaviors that you have disagreed with if you just see it.
It also can dissolve years of a mental framework that constrains you. So I'll give you an example. Before we recorded this, I arranged with the producer to share my screen because we're doing this via Zoom. And I showed those two pictures, the picture of the hawk and the picture of the deer to Sandy and Christina who's coming on and whatnot. And I thanked Sandy. I regularly thank him for his input on, I'm like, thank you for the care. And he goes, it's the photographer. And I heard it. And while I am grateful to him, it's also, I hate to use the word useful, but there's something also about hearing him talk about the clarity, the eyelashes, and it's the photographer. So his comment, if I hear it, allows me to let go of outdated ideas that include when I was a lesser photographer or had a lesser experience of myself. So in that vein, Sandy, I'd like to say something to you because you said something earlier that while is true, because like, for instance, thank you for the camera is true, but incomplete.
You know, and to hear what Ariel's about to say, you need to relax.
Because it's good.
And be willing to hear what she has to say from her point of view.
You said something that was very sweet and humble and just part of the fabric of who you are. And I really appreciate that. I love all of that about you. You talked about how you've been really lucky in your career to have done all these different mediums and had the success that you have. But if you think it's all luck, you're missing something. You have been fortunate, but I don't see it as luck. I see if I have a half a dozen people of equal talent, I'd like to work with you. So there's something about you that was dropped out in that statement.
Thank you. That means so much to me. That's so wonderful to hear.
Mm.
Well, you mean so much to us too, you know.
Likewise, there's a given, you know, something, whatever the reason I've been thinking about lately is I miss hugging you guys coming off the elevator when we used to have the Monday nights, because there's something to that, you know. It's although I think Zoom is amazing, and it's you know, if it was 20 years ago, we wouldn't be able to do it the way we're doing things now. So everything fell into place, and I think Zoom is great. It makes it convenient for a lot of people, but you know, I love doing trade shows for clients because of the interaction of the human being, versus doing a virtual trade show, which don't seem to work. But that human interaction is just amazing.
Transformation does work via Zoom,
Yes.
and in person works too.
Well, we do have two possibilities for it. And I don't know, you may have a trade show or something that doesn't work for you, but we are doing the Being in Nature course. It's a Friday afternoon, evening, Saturday and Sunday. It's in October, the 21st through the 23rd. It's in New Jersey, so it's not so difficult to get to for you. And I'm just saying that not only to you, but to everybody who's listening. If you want to, there will be no elevators involved, but it will
But
be
it's the first in-person course we're doing in 2.5 years. Thank you, COVID.
Also, we are doing Costa Rican next year, and we do not have. We have a place that's available for us to rent. We're looking for one that's a little bit bigger. Our normal place is under renovation, so when you hear this, you can check back with our website. I think things will go live about this more in the next couple of weeks. So I'm just letting y'all know that there are some in-person seminars, but also it was very interesting, Sandy. We did the Living Made Easy this morning with folks from Hong Kong to, you know, Germany and you know, everywhere in between, different places in the country, etc. I was shocked at the level of intimacy that was available between people, and also how freely everybody felt to be honest about things, how we all saw things about each other. Because on Zoom, you're really up close and personal when you have it with the video cameras on, and people were looking and seeing, and also allowing themselves to be seen. It was extraordinarily intimate, and that's why I'm really happy when this airs in a few days on the 17th and 18th. We're doing the intimacy weekend, and I'm saying to whoever can make it, you are invited. It is not too late to register, and you'd be welcome.
And when we talk about intimacy, it's not just physical intimacy. It's about intimacy with your life as it's showing up moment to moment. You're actually being there for your life rather than thinking about what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, we were on the way to come up here, and I saw our cat baby sleeping on her cat tree. And so her cat tree is kind of eye level, and I usually tend to not bother her there because it's a safe place for her. But I stroked her fur, and she lifted her leg, and her belly is kind of a sensitive area. She's often protective of it. And I put my hand on her belly, and she just settled around my hand. It did not disturb her at all. And it was just so sweet, that level of vulnerability. And then she kind of was like flexing her claws out and back, kind of as if she was kneading the piece of fabric in her sleep. And it was just a very sweet and intimate moment, which wouldn't have happened if I had been busy going somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And you were going somewhere.
Yes, but I wasn't busy in my mind.
Right.
Yeah, you can have it all. You can go somewhere, you can get things done, and at the same time, you can be where you
Well,
are.
this morning we had 20 minutes available to us. And I went out and I got the weeds whacked. I got the hot tub filled. I did a whole bunch of
And I
stuff.
pulled all the weeds in our
Little veggie
spot and got rid of them and made it beautiful over there. And
Yeah.
that little snippet of nature was just so awesome.
When you just do what you're doing, life opens.
Anything else you wanted to ask or address or share with people before we end this part?
I just want to say how wonderful this whole community is. You know, we talk about intimacy. I become friends with people through phone calls, emails, Zoom that I've never met. You know, people from Europe. And we just have similar feeling, maybe not even similar, just that our minds are just in similar places of, hearing and seeing things. I'll give you an example. Hiker. I never met Hiker, but we became really good friends because she's a creative spirit. That's not the only reason why, but before she got to COVID, and I never met her. We don't really even talk on the phone. A lot of it is through texting or messaging or Facebook or whatever. But that's what this community does. I mean, like, I feel we reach out to each other. Sometimes not for months, and then like you feel like you just spoke to them yesterday, and it was months ago. And that's rare. That's just rare in many communities. That I want to thank you guys for putting it together.
Well, thank you for partaking.
Yeah.
Also, it occurs to me that there may be people listening to this podcast today. It's either been sent to them by a friend, they accessed it. However, we're on all the different podcast platforms. If you're not yet on our newsletter, you may want to sign up for it because there are videos with people like Sandy. There are the access way to this podcast, which you can also subscribe to. There are articles, there are blogs written by people. In fact, this morning we invited Heike to write a blog about her acting since this COVID experience. So if you want to meet Heike in person and see a video that she did, a music video where she is brilliant, post-COVID, sign up for our newsletter at transformationmadeeasy.com. That was fun. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Love you too, honey.
Selba, as they say. We love you right back. Alrighty then. Drum roll, please. You sound like our cat. It's time for our listener feedback spotlight while Shya is here purring with me. We get to hear from one of our listeners
about how transformation has impacted their lives. And if you'd like to learn more or register for any of our upcoming courses, visit transformationmadeeasy.com.
Yeah.
And when I say easy, it's like the fire swamp.
Yeah, join us.
If you know your way through it, it's easy. If you have a good guide, it's easy. If you don't, well, there's rodents of unusual size. There's lightning sand.
Oh,
all those things.
I don't remember.
Oh, and the fire spurts. Right.
There you go.
There you go.
We're great
Transformation made easy.com.
Hi, I'm Naz from Cheshunt in the UK, and I love tuning in to being here and attending the seminars because they've offered me possibilities for wellness, well-being in every area of my life.
Do you want to have well-being with consistency? Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shya's lively interactive Living Made Easy virtual seminars. Join any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
I know we mentioned it while speaking to Sandy, but here's the dates and the information of the next 2 weekend seminars we have coming.
Intimacy.
It's this weekend upcoming.
September 17th and 18th.
And then Being in Nature, the residential retreat here in New Jersey.
October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
You can find out all the details at transformationmadeeasy.com and can register as well.
Oh, we didn't say that we finish each other's sentences.
Well, we just demonstrated it.
Okay.
So if they were listening, they probably got that.
Yes.
Our next, next Monday is our next Living Made Easy 2-hour seminar, and then Saturday, September 24th. So go ahead and check out our website and feel free to register whatever attraction, whatever you're available for, and we'd love to have you. Shall we take our next?
Oh, yes.
Great, Miss Christina. Welcome to being here. Please tell people where you're zooming in from.
Hi, this is Christina, and I'm zooming in from Bonn, Germany.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Sorry?
You're welcome.
Good. I don't have really a question, but when I read the topic, I was immediately resonating with the quote you have in the prescription, because I love nature. I love nature for so many things, but especially because I find nature really honest, and nature doesn't judge me like people do, or like my mind does about myself. So I find that really fascinating when you go out in nature and being with nature. It's always really friendly and kind. I just love that being there.
Well, I think in a certain respect, you've just added your judgment over top of nature. I mean, first of all, the John Muir quote where he says, "I go into the forest to lose my mind and find my soul." He's not doing a prescription where he says you should go into the forest to lose your mind and find your soul. He's relating his experience. That was the first thing. But when you said you find nature friendly,
nature isn't kind.
One day we were sitting out in our backyard, Christina, and it was a particular year that we had a little weasel, pretty small animal that was living in the rocks by our pond. And it came over to our backyard, and it was hunting chipmunks. And the chipmunk was actually bigger than the weasel, but the weasel was a predator and very fast. So it was really something to watch this weasel hunt and catch and kill a chipmunk. And now in the kind, friendly, oh, poor little chipmunk, he's so cute. So it wasn't kind, it wasn't friendly, but it wasn't unfriendly either. It just is
the way it is. People often say it is what it is.
But what they really mean is, okay, I'll put up with it.
But they don't like what is. It's not their preference, but they say it. So, I can't do anything about it.
I guarantee you, if I go, wow, Shya, that was the best orgasm I ever had in my life, he would not say to me,
it is what it is.
People say that as a catch-all for, I don't really like this.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. I think, friendly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just what it is. That's true. I think that's...
I know John says I lose my mind, but I mean, I think, in a certain respect, it's like the mind loosens its hold over him.
He stops talking to himself about himself and what's wrong with him, and he gets fascinated by the nature he's in. He gets pulled into the environment that he happens to find himself, rather than talk to himself about how his father wasn't there for him, or his mother wasn't there for him, or they were there too much and they suffocated
They were
him.
overly concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people's conversations are about how the circumstances should have been different somehow.
Yeah.
I think one of your challenges, my friend, is you're very smart. So I know your mind sometimes says unfriendly things and you find that a fault, and it is just part and parcel of your intelligence. So, in change, you've got the two sides, good and bad, right and wrong. So your mind may dictate to you things, and it may say, quote, unkind things. It just talks. You don't have to listen. Or you can get interested in the nuance of how it talks to you, and that gives you information.
Yeah. That's cool.
I know that people are listening to this and they don't have the opportunity to actually see you because we're releasing this without the video component. But I'm looking at something that I believe is your artwork back on top of the bookshelves. It's got a sweep of varying colored blue, and it points right up to your blue eyes.
Yes, that's so true.
So whilst you're inside, somehow I feel like I'm meeting nature.
Yeah, that's sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's you that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
See, in your head, you pick on you and think you should be different. And if you did it differently, those things that your child desires, those things that your childhood ideas of what a good life will produce, because most of that stuff is from a child's perspective, that when you get the right relationship, you'll be fulfilled. You're already fulfilled, my dear. You just need to discover that.
Yeah.
Also, anything that your mind says or how it works is part of the gift of being you. So from time to time, it says nasty things or unkind things, or it swears at you, or it uses your name. Like your name is easier to curse with than mine because it starts with a Christina. You can say to yourself, "Oh, Christina," the same way I said to myself at some point. I can go, Ariel. I can say it like if you watch that without judging that stream, it's like this incredible wealth of information. And as you're okay with yourself being you, you give everyone around you permission to be themselves.
That's so cool.
Like
wow.
You said, people around you judge you, you judge you. If you see the judgments and don't judge yourself for judging yourself, or don't judge that stream of conversation for having judgment as a content, then suddenly
you're free.
You're free, and people around you go.
Because if you're not judging you, you're not going to be judging them.
That's true. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, I enjoyed this episode.
So did I.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can leave a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps other people find being here. If you feel to do it, thanks in advance. you can also share it. It's easy to share. And we invite you to share this or whatever episodes you enjoy. Thank you for being with us today. Shout out to you for being a listener and for joining us and being here. We're going to be back next week, and next week's episode is comfortable discomfort.
Whatever that means.
Well, like when you're uncomfortable with your weight, but you start to lose a little bit of it, and suddenly you get uncomfortable because
you're losing your weight.
Right? So you may want to add it right back because you're comfortable in that uncomfortable.
I understand.
We'll start playing with that next
So
week.
come on back.
And don't miss
being here.